What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Rivian. I want to go over some of the data points, what's moving it today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Rivian is down 7.63%, 1171 the low, 1272 the high. A lot of fear in the market associated to inflationary data that was kind of stemming from last week. The only odd thing with Rivian though is a lot of stocks have recovered. Rivian has stayed relatively flat, and that's because of what came out, not in the form of news or SEC filings or anything like that, rather in the form of a analyst rating. So there was two that came out today. One downgrade from Bank of America, John Murphy, who has a 53% success rating. And on a side note, I think the market is taking their rating as very negative, only because, well, I guess for face value, it is a downgrade, but John was previously a very big Rivian bull, alongside many of the actual other analysts. At one time when it was in the high teens, low 20s, a lot of analysts absolutely loved it, despite the cash burn. But it's kind of interesting, that has somewhat improved the cash burn from we've seen from their last earnings, but analysts have just now flipped and turned very bearish. So as a consensus, $14.30 is all the recent ratings. So that does represent a 20.4% upside. So not all that great. I'm sure most people who watch these videos and just hold Rivian have a higher average than that. But again, a $10 sell isn't great. You also do have one from D.A. Davidson, Michael, who has a 39% success rating. Absolutely horrific. Did give a $13 price target. And then you also did have from their earnings $6.10, that is from Bernstein. You also have Flipside $20, $16, $18. So you are seeing some optimism, but those analysts previously did have high 20s for rating. So still, even though they're buy, they are definitely lowered. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. Aside from that though, moving over to shorts. Shorts right now are increasing 1.55 million shares. 16.8% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 143.53 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow average 1.04. Then utilization is 69.72. So shorts definitely are pouncing over all of this fear. And I think in general, Rivian's earnings wasn't as bad as what people are really portraying it as. So in case you do or did miss it, right here is their earnings. So they did beat on earnings per share or revenue, but the market is solely caring about future guidance right now. And I feel that another stock that I do cover, Lucid, is going to be the exact same way, that the key metrics are just going to be brushed under the rug, and it is going to be their future guidance. What growth, for instance, on production are they going to have? And that's one thing that Rivian essentially did very much miss on, even though they did announce that plan to shut down for 1 month in the second half of 2025. It's planned. It was already planned, I think, like a long time ago. So it's nothing really new, just the fact that maybe people were anticipating that Rivian was going to have kind of higher, like lower expectations, but beat on it, if that makes sense. So initially say 1 month, but then maybe lower it down to 2 weeks. I'm not really sure. Market is sometimes crazy, but generally the hate towards Rivian and just EVs has definitely escalated, and shorts have, like I said, pounced. You can kind of see that based on the recent action right here. So low was 18.13% for that. Moving on from this though, looking at options, 8.37 million in calls, 5.24 million in puts. 55% of all the options being done today are bearish in nature. So despite the pullback, you are still seeing a lot of bearish options and rather low volume on a side note. So 13.6 million for total premiums right now. We're about halfway, just over halfway through the day. 22.9 is from Friday, then 30.4 the day prior. So like I said, not necessarily the best, and put/call ratio is kind of inching up a little bit, so insinuating a little bit more downside as well. Looking at the call options that are being purchased, you see a consensus for it to recover to roughly around that $14 range. So not all that great. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 11. So a little bit more upside is anticipated based on this, just of course, the frequency is largely bearish, as what I mentioned, but these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So it does fit on one screen, so not all that great. Everything that does show as a bid essentially is a sell, so 1.25, 7.85. So very few institutions are actually buying the Rivian dip. And I think, like I said, that is the biggest difference between what is happening here, for instance, and this. So a lot of stocks are essentially recovering, just not necessarily Rivian. Rivian is just relatively flat. So Palantir is somewhat the same, but at least it's recovered a little bit more from that. But these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool above $100,000. So big money is definitely getting in. Most likely this is associated to shorts. So shorts love to use dark pool and all the other fun jazz. So again, these are some of the transactions for that. With it at 1203, it is trading between this S2 and this S1. Or sorry, the S2 and S3. So $12.14 is that key pivot. So really want to watch for Rivian to close above that. 1141 is going to be the next strong support. So the bears are anticipating for that to be broken, and of course for it to close below that. Bulls are anticipating for a full-on recovery to roughly around that pivot point. So just take note of some of the strong support and resistance points. Aside from all that fun stuff though, and analyst ratings and stuff, looking on the actual chart itself, so this 100-day moving average is at $12.15. That's going to be a key point that you really want to watch for it to, again, fight over and to close above that. Looking at stochastic RSI, oddly enough, given the momentum that did happen recently between, I guess, FOMO leading into the earnings, you'd have it rather overbought. So it's kind of cooling off a little bit, so somewhat neutral, but still not, given the circumstances of what has happened over the last couple of trading days. You would figure that this would be mind-blowingly oversold, but not necessarily the case. So on the actual chart itself, it is definitely showing a lot of weakness and more consolidation potentially coming in the foreseeable future. Just watch for it definitely to close above that 100-day moving average, so $12.15, and going back over here, 12.14, that S2. So that is if you're going to see any sort of recovery, it has to close above that. So let me know your thoughts on Rivian. Give yourself a shout out if you did buy, if you sold. What is your kind of general takeaway from everything? And so I already did do a video, I think one day after Rivian's earnings. I went over some of the absolute key highlights from their earnings, but what was your kind of most bullish / also bearish takeaway from the earnings? So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. One final thing, if you're looking for some good buy signals, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.